On the opening night of Substance of Fire, at the opening night party, I had no idea that such a thing would happen, but Andre and Bernie came up to me and announced that rather than try and move it to Broadway, which was a possibility, there was the opportunity to do it at Lincoln Center, which I so much prefer to Broadway. I was visiting Los Angeles. I'd just done a play of mine at the Taper, and I was sort of burnt out from it, but I had this little borrowed office above this bookstore, Book Soup. The office was surrounded by, there was just books everywhere, you know, and I thought to myself, look at all these books, what good have they done me? And that, I just started writing. That was a sort of wah, and that was the first line of the play. Look at all these books. I think it was a very important time for me, for Ron Rifkin, for Dan Sullivan, for Sarah Jessica. It was one of those magic times. And I pride myself on the fact that I write for and am sensitive to actors. You know, I feel like an actor's writer. And so it's very, very, you end up with long relationships with actors, for better or for worse, if you do that. A Fair Country was a long time coming. I'd done a very early version of it a few years before we did it here in Los Angeles, and it hadn't really worked. And it was very sort of autobiographical and close. And somehow, under the umbrella of Andre and Bernie and working with Dan Sullivan, Andre suggesting we do a workshop at Seattle Rep, I was able to find the play again. In a way, it's about a continuation of unfettered passions, and how the most powerful person in a group, in a family, in a country, in a whatever, is usually the most damaged. I used South Africa because, you know, 7 years there, 6.5 years there really, had worked on me in a particular way that it finally felt at a certain point in my writing life able to talk about. You know, for years I thought I had no right to interpret my South Africa as a privileged white person there. You know, what was my suffering? My suffering was simply, you know, growing up and recognition, and it was nothing compared to the actual suffering of the place. It was simply my being frightened and affronted by what I encountered and by our own, I think, fallibility there. Americans doing business there, accommodating the worst ideas. It was my territory. It was what South Africa was what I came to recognize as what made me political. I think I was emboldened in some way. You know, the relationship with Lincoln Center is the most, and has been the most important one in my creative life, and I think I felt comfortable writing exactly what I wanted, knowing that there was space for me here. Every time I write a play, you know, the people I love and trust say, oh, well, why don't you do this one on Broadway? I have zero interest in doing a play on Broadway. I have a great deal of interest in doing a play in the Mitzi Newhouse.
Hey, you're a good dancer. Where'd you learn?
When I was a kid, we lived in East LA, and they had a community center, and they taught dancing, and table manners, and woodworking.
I love the Mitzi. I love its Greek, amphitheater-like qualities. I love that you descend into it. It has a quiet energy. The presence of the audience is absolutely tangible when you do a play there. It's intimate and sharp. And so, yeah, that's my favorite theater.